The Roaring Twenties were a time of song, dance, movies, money, and more. After World War I, this decade experienced an economic boom, cultural shifts, and innovative progress. In 1920, the 18th Amendment was passed, starting Prohibition. In 1921, the New York Giants beat the Yankees in a World Series game. In 1922, the Lincoln Memorial was dedicated in Washington, D.C. In 1923, Coolidge became president after Harding dies. In 1924, the KKK was reborn. 1925, the first woman governor was elected in Wyoming. 1926, first successful liquid fuel rocket was launched. 1927, Charles Lindbergh flew across the Atlantic Ocean. 1928, Amelia Earhart flew across the Atlantic Ocean. In 1929, the stock market crashed, starting the Great Depression. Movies and television were an important aspect to 1920s culture. 5 of the major film studios at the time were Warner Bros. Pictures, Famous Players / Lasky Corporation, RKO Pictures, Metro Pictures Corporation, and the Fox Film Corporation. All of these contributed to how influential the film industry was during this decade. Some popular films during the 1920s included The Torrent, The Temptress, Mantrap, Wings, and Phantom of the Opera. People would go see movies about once a week. They would dress up. It was a very big deal. They were an important social force. After World War I, movies were a positive distraction from the repercussions of war. By 1927, Hollywood had become the center of movie making in the United States. 85% of the U.S. movie production occurred in Hollywood. U.S. output of movie studios overwhelmed the film production in many other countries.
The 1920s have been referred to as the golden age of sports. Babe Ruth is the most famous athlete of the 1920s. He was a professional baseball player and was loved by many for his fanatic nature and home runs. Jack Dempsey was a professional boxer. He headlined the first $1 million gate at any sporting event in 1921. Knute Rockne coached at Notre Dame during one of their golden eras. During the time, this football team was seen as the most popular and best in the nation. Horse racing was also very popular at the time due to its relationship with gambling. This horse, Man o' War, is widely regarded as the greatest racehorse in history.
The 1920s were a time of social upheaval. In no other way was this change more prominent than in music and dance. The 1920s is referred to as the Jazz Age. This new type of music was derived from African American music and many others. Characterized by dissonant but soulful chords and improvisation, jazz truly came from the soul. Some of the most famous jazz composers and players of the time were George Gershwin and Louis Armstrong. Gershwin is known for combining jazz and classical. His most famous works were Summertime and Rhapsody in Blue. Armstrong is known for superior trumpeting, improvisation, and scatting skills. New forms of dance also emerged, like the Charleston, which involved kicking up the heels. The mixture of these two cultural phenomenons truly characterized music and dance in the 1920s.
1920s men's fashion was the foundation of modern menswear. Men wore the basics, Oxford shoes, suits, and hats, but with vibrant and colorful accessories. The clothing was constantly evolving, becoming lighter and more comfortable. The 1920s was a revolutionary time for women's fashion. The trends strayed away from traditional dress and instead emphasized comfort and versatility. Largely credited with this shift was designer Coco Chanel, who popularized the short skirts and feminine trousers of the time.
To conclude, the 1920s were an age of dramatic social and political change. Whether it was through song, style, or cinema, this decade broke barriers and became the beginning of a new era. Many things in today's society can be credited to the Roaring Twenties.